the Agent Team, bringing you another video in our Becoming an Effective Buyer series. Today we're going to talk about kind of a foundational principle of being an effective buyer, and that is having an expert, effective team. Listen, here's the truth of the matter. No matter how serious you are about buying a house, no matter how ready you think you are, if you do not have an expert, effective team that's backing you up, you're not going to get a house as quickly, you're not going to find as good of a deal, and the process, the transaction is not going to be as smooth and exciting as it could have been. I'm going to start with the core of this, and that's your agent. You need somebody that's engaged, that's ready to go, that's proactively finding houses, even maybe houses that aren't listed on the MLS yet. You need a lender who's expert at getting his job or her job done, that can tell you what you're able to qualify for, how to get to a point that you want to get to. You need a title company that knows how to properly screen and search the history of a home to make sure that something weird doesn't pop up later. You need an expert core team of people helping you with this transaction. Work with a team that can support you and back you up in probably the most important transaction that you'll ever go through. Be an effective buyer. Give us a call.
Hey everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. I am super excited to be doing another buyer webinar. It's been a couple of months and everybody is asking, what's the market like? Is it as bad as the news is saying? You know, we just saw this article about some young first-time home buyer couple up in the Ogden area. It was on KSL, I think, and how hard it was to get offers accepted. And you know, we all know pricing is going up. And so I'm excited to jump on here with you. We've got a special guest speaker that's going to be coming on in just probably about 20-25 minutes, named Pianjo Glad, who just recently joined the Effective Agent Team and has a lot of experience with helping buyers navigate that home buying process. So we'll do kind of a question and answer with her. And I'm just going to jump in here as we're starting to talk. I want to talk about what to expect in the current market. I mean, because that seems to be the number one question as we talk to people, is like, what's it like out there right now? So just in general, properties are still getting multiple offers. Not as many as we were a month and a half ago. I mean, you know, back then you list a house and within 2 days we had like 25 offers. Within a week, sometimes we were up to 40. It seems like that has pulled back just a little bit, but we're still definitely a strong seller's market. I mean, I think the last listing that we just sold a week or so ago, we had about 10 offers within the first 4 days. So still very strong. You still need to be very competitive to get an offer accepted as a buyer, but not quite as fast as it was. Statistically, we're still seeing the average in Utah County, and Salt Lake County is fairly similar, that homes are selling for about 7% above the list price, which is unbelievable to have an average of selling above list price. We'll talk just a little bit about that. If you want to know more stats, we'll be doing our second quarter 2021 State of the Market report the first week of July. So watch for that. We'll have that posted on our Facebook channel. But yeah, it still is a very hot market. You still need to see properties quickly. You still need to have a very well presented offer. And so that's kind of what the conversation, you know, for the first 20-25 minutes is going to be here on this call. Let's jump in and talk about offer strategies then. Because there's a lot of things that you can do to make your offer stand out. I think that, you know, one of the first things is to make sure that you have an amazing pre-approval letter. And I want to kind of talk for just a second about the difference between a pre-approval and a pre-qualification. Pre-qualification, you basically call a lender, you say, hey, I want to get a loan. They say, great. They pull your credit. They ask you how much you make, and you say, $120,000 a year, you know, or whatever. And they say, great, I'll give you a loan for $600,000 bucks. And that's a pre-qualification, and you're done. They haven't verified income. They haven't verified assets. They haven't, you know, done a lot of work on the file. there's a place for that, and we'll talk about that when we get to timing just a little bit. The next level up from a pre-qualification is a pre-approval. That's where they go in and they do a little bit more work. They actually will verify income. They'll look at bank statements, they'll verify assets, things like that. But then they kind of stop there and they say, okay, you're pre-approved for this amount. And it looks like we can get you a loan, but they haven't actually done anything with the loan yet. They've just looked at it and they're saying, from my experience as a lender, I think I can get you approved for this much money. And then usually that's fairly reliable, but to really stand out in this market, we recommend that every buyer get a full underwritten pre-approval. So they take all that documentation for the pre-approval that we just talked about, but they actually turn it into their processor who goes through it and says, oh, we need a letter for this. We need another bank statement. We need to see your tax returns. And then they even take it and send it off to an underwriter who goes through it and says, okay, I need a letter of explanation here. We need to talk to your employer here. How much of this is overtime? How much is salary? They actually go through the file and they come back and say, we can close a loan as soon as we have an appraisal that, where the home appraises for at least the purchase price. And that's a full underwritten pre-approval. And it looks really good in a lender when you're writing an offer to a buyer, where you can have a letter that says we are fully underwritten, fully approved. We can close in 10 days. All we need is an appraisal. So the other thing that I suggest that you do as you're writing your offer, don't just send a pre-approval letter. Let's say you're buying a $500,000 house. You're going to put $45,000 down, and you've got your pre-approval, underwritten pre-approval letter. Well, $45,000 is a big amount of money. I like to provide proof of funds as well. So we send a bank statement. We black out your account numbers, and we say, they're fully approved and underwritten. And here's a statement that shows that we actually have the money that we're saying that we have as a down payment. Because the way that the Utah contract is written, it actually says that a buyer and a buyer's lender can change the amount of down payment and the loan amount that's written onto a contract without permission from the seller. So a lot of buyers, will say, well, let's just say we're putting 50 grand down. But in reality, their intent is to, do a 5% down payment, and maybe they're only doing 20,000 down. So it helps your offer stand out, because in one way you're showing them, yes, we've got these funds, but in another way, you're kind of casting some doubt on the other offers. Like, well, this, offer B says they're putting 50,000 down, but they haven't shown it to us yet. So anyways, just some thoughts there. I think that all effective buyer's agents will call the seller's agent before you write the offer to see what the seller needs. And the way that my conversation usually goes with the seller's agents is, other than a great offer with a good price and short deadlines, what else do your sellers need? Do they need a fast close? Do they need a slow closing? Do they want us to close quickly, but then they want to lease the property back? Do they need to keep some things in the garage until they're all the way moved out? What can we do to help your seller that would make this process better for them? And then we'll put those types of things in the offer, as long as they match up with what you're able to do as a buyer too. So understand the seller and work that into your offer. You don't always have to pay $10,000 more than the next guy to get the house. There's other things that can provide value to the seller as well. Talking about offers, we're not asking for a seller to pay for home warranty anymore. We're not asking for a seller to pay for closing costs. I highly suggest having a conversation about some of your earnest money becoming non-refundable after due diligence. And there's some safe ways to do that. And we can really get into the, what does that mean? I just threw out a bunch of non-refundable earnest money after due diligence period. Let's talk about that. It really makes your offer look like, wow, these guys are committed. And I mean, I'll talk about a few more tips of things that we do in offers, but I want the sellers to give your offer a title. When they're looking through these 12 offers that they got, I want them to be like, oh, okay, where's the offer that had the high amount of earnest money and is already underwritten? If they're calling your offer something, the underwritten earnest money offer, that's a great thing, because they're remembering it and it's standing out to them. So I like to have the buyer's agent and the buyer's lender actually call the listing agent. I think on this last property that we just sold, I think we had about 10 offers, maybe 12, somewhere 10 to 12 offers, somewhere in there. One person called me. The rest of them just shot off an offer. Here you go. Some of them didn't even follow up to see if I'd received it. About half of them sent a follow-up that said, did you get the offer? Maybe because, you know, after we look through them, we confirm them anyways, but no contact at all from over half of them. And then only one called me and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about my buyers and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And they ended up being the ones to get the property too. Their offer was great. But it really went a long way to hear from the agent and the lender. We want a clean offer. Everything put together in one package. Sometimes we get offers on properties where we've got the contract in one email and then an addendum in another attachment, and then their pre-approval letter comes in another email, and then they're missing a form that's federally required, and you know, so we have to reach back out to them and say, hey, we need this form. And it just, anytime you're adding work to it, hopefully it's a good seller's agent and they're still going to present it. But, you know, it goes a long way when I'm representing a seller to say, and so not only is this a great offer, but the agent seems to be really on the ball. I mean, everything was put together well, it was written well. So have a clean offer. If at all possible, stay away from FHA loans. They're not bad. There's a time and a place for them. But especially if a property is older than 1978, it could start to scare sellers if you're using an FHA loan. And I'm not saying it's impossible. We just had an FHA loan accepted on a property that was older than 1978, and then we worked through it. I called the agent and had a conversation and said, okay, I know this is FHA. Let me talk to you about things we've done to have FHA work. But it's nicer if you don't have to use one. Not to. And like I said, all the forms together, you know, if they've given you a copy of the seller property condition disclosures, read them, sign them, and send it back with the offer. If it's a property that was built before 1978, include the lead-based paint form that's federally required. If the property's in a city that requires a zoning statement, have that completed and have your pre-approval letter and your proof of funds and put them together in one document, as opposed to a whole bunch of stuff all over the place. Just keep it clean. Full price offer or higher. Now, do not fall into the trap of saying, okay, in Utah County, on average, properties are selling for 7% above list price. So if this house is $400,000, I'm going to offer them $428,000. That's not how it works. You know, that property, maybe it's worth $450,000. They underpriced it and it's going to go up to $460,000 in the offer. Or maybe you know, the last comparable property that sold was only $380,000 and they're asking $400,000. You don't need to go in and offer 7% above, but plan on probably offering more than what they're asking. I give the average just so you kind of have a ballpark idea. But before you do that, you need an effective buyer's agent that will actually run comparable properties and give you some suggestions of price. So run that valuation first. Just another tip, and this won't apply to everybody, but if you have the ability to pay cash, even if you don't want to tie all of that cash up in a property, but if you have the ability to, and it won't cost you a lot of money to use that, do it. And then if you want to, refinance and get some of that cash back later. If you have the ability to pay cash, you can get properties accepted without having to pay a ton more money than everybody else, because you've got a very attractive reason for the seller to accept your offer. So I've got a couple examples of that. I had somebody, young buyer, first-time home buyer, that was buying a property, and her parents said, hey, anything we can do to help. And they, you know, had a place in California and had tons of equity in it. They just wrote a check off their home equity line. She paid cash for the property. We got an offer accepted for $20,000 less than the highest offer, because they weren't, you know, the seller wasn't confident that it was going to appraise for what the highest offer was, but we were cash. And so they went with our offer. And then as soon as she got the offer accepted, we started the refinance process. And I think it was a week and a half. I don't think it was a full 2 weeks after she closed on the property. The refinance was done and paid off her parents. I have investors that want to buy several properties that have, you know, $500,000 in cash sitting around that they want to invest. Rather than getting a loan and putting 20% down or 30% down, they'll go in and pay cash for it, do the same refinance process, pull that cash out, and now they've got, of their 500, they've got 400,000 less left, and and they'll go and pay cash for a property and do the same thing over and over. If you have the ability to pay cash, that makes your offer much more attractive to a seller. And again, know what they want. Do we want a fast close with a lease back? Do we want short time frames on due diligence and financing and approval? Just so you know, as a side note, on our team, when working with our preferred lender, we actually can have that offer fully underwritten. We can close in 10 days. So, I mean, a 10-day close, that's about as fast as cash offers do if they're just looking for a fast close. The other thing we can do, we have the ability to get appraisals back in 5 to 7 days right now. We talk to a lot of agents and we ask them, how fast can you get appraisals back? And they say, oh, 14 days. But there's ways that you can get an appraisal back from the day your offer is accepted. You can get it back in 5 to 7 days. So we actually, in some situations, it's appropriate to waive the appraisal deadline and to have that appraisal back during your due diligence deadline. And again, I'm throwing out words. We can talk more specifically, but that looks really good to a seller. I mean, you can have an offer that you're saying we're closing in 14 days. We're doing 7 days of due diligence. We're waiving the appraisal. We're already fully underwritten. We're giving you $5,000 of earnest money. We're making $2,500 of it non-refundable, and we're offering this great price. And I mean, that's a very attractive offer. So, and there's a lot more things that we can do to really make your offer stand out. But just have that in mind. I mean, that's very appropriate and very needed in this market, because, and that's what we do. We line up all of our offers for sellers and we say, here's the top 3. And we talk about all of them, but we really talk about, the top 3 offers. And for the most part, if there's an offer that's memorable, even if it's not the highest offer, a lot of times my sellers will say, well, we really like this one, but it's $2,000 less than the other one. And we'll call the agent and say, hey, would you come up $2,000 if you will, you got the property. So make your offer memorable. Let's talk about the buying process and kind of time frames of what you can expect. And then from there, we'll go into a segment with Pianja, which I'm excited to kind of interview and have some questions with her. But when should you do a pre-qualification? When should you do a pre-approval? When should you start looking at homes? How long is it going to take from the time that you start looking at a house until you're moving in? How long does it take from the time you get an offer accepted until you're moving in? That's important to know, because if let's say you've got a lease that's going to expire in October and you want to be moving into a house, you don't want to be renting anymore. Well, when do you start? Do you start in August? Do you start in September? Do you start in June? So typically speaking, if you're about a year out or less, get a pre-qualification. Have a lender pull your credit, tell them what your income is. You don't need to do the full underwritten approval, but I would start with that pre-qualification just to make sure that there's nothing on your credit that you need to fix, or if there's some tips that the lender can give you to say, hey, if you do this and this in the next 8 months, when you're ready to buy, we'll be able to get you a lower interest rate. So it's always good to take a look at that. And then I typically suggest about 6 to 8 months before you're going to be buying, if you have that amount of time, set up a property drip where it'll just be sending you maybe once a week properties that have hit the market, and you can kind of get an idea of, ooh, I hate this in a house and I really like that, and here's how much homes are selling for, and wow, this one was only on the market for 2 days and then it sold. You'll get an idea. It will help you to define what you want. You can even drive by some of the locations. Wow, there's this really great house in Lehigh, and go out and drive there and say, oh, I didn't realize there's these big overhead power lines right there, and so we want to stay east of that, or whatever. It'll help you understand locations. It'll help you understand what you like in a house. It will help you be in tune with the speed and the pricing of the market. You don't by any means need to be going on every day and saving properties and things like that when you're 6 months out. But it's a good idea to start taking a look. And then back to timelines. Let's say we start your search. There's not, 2 years ago, we would put your criteria in and we would say, okay, there's 80 properties that came up. We've narrowed it down to 15 that look like they're going to match what you want. Let's go out today and tomorrow. We'll look at all of those, and then we'll decide what our top 5 are. We'll write an offer. Maybe we'll write 2 offers, just depending on, what we want to do. And then you'll have a house, and we'll be closing 30 days later. In this market, we're we're going to put all of your criteria in, there's probably going to be a few properties. You could count it on one hand how many properties are going to be good matches for your search. We'll go out and look at those when maybe we'll like only 2 of them. Maybe we'll put an offer on one, and then there's going to be multiple offers, and you'll get out, someone will come in with cash and you won't get it accepted. So it might take a couple of weeks to get your offer accepted. Even with all the great stuff that we do on offers, it can take some time. But it might take 2 weeks to a month to get an offer accepted. You're probably closing 2 weeks to a month after that. So, we're somewhere between 1 to 2 months right now. And then if the seller needs a lease back and you're open to doing that, that could be another 60 days. So now we're at 4 months. So general rule of thumb, from the point that you start looking until you're moving into a house, you're probably somewhere between 2 to 3 months on average. And it's nice to have a little bit of time. If you're in that scenario where you've got an apartment and the lease is going to end on, October 1st, maybe we want to be closing on a property middle of September so that you have a couple of weeks to move your stuff out and to clean up. And so, we backtrack from that 3 to 4 months. It's time to start looking right now. So don't worry if you don't have that much time. If your lease is ending in August 1st and you're worried, like, oh no, did we wait too long? Let's just talk. We can customize timeframes, but that's about the time frame that we recommend. So I'm going to throw a quick video in just as we transition here about lending, and then we will switch over and have Pianjo join us, and I'll be back online live in just about a minute and a half with Pianjo.
Good morning, this is Micah Olson, owner of the Effective Agent team. You're watching another video in our series about becoming an effective buyer. Today we're going to talk about something really awesome. It's how you can know if your lender is really the person that you need them to be, and some tips on what your lender can do for you. Your lender has the ability to affect the purchase of your home in a good or a bad way almost as much as any other person that could be on your real estate team. So they've got to be phenomenal. Here's a couple things that I've learned that I require from any lender. First of all, they have to have in-house processing. They've got to have somebody in their office that they can walk over to, set your paperwork down and say, I need this done today. The second thing, kind of similar to the first, we need somebody that has in-house underwriting. Some lenders will ship your package off to some underwriting plant somewhere, and you're number 145 on this desk of underwriters. The other thing that we need is a lender who's really a consultant and an advocate. What are you really going to be comfortable with in a payment? Not just what's the most that we can get approved for. We need somebody that when you find that perfect home, they're writing an approval letter that really speaks about your abilities to qualify. We need somebody to, if you're not quite ready yet, we need a lender that'll sit down and say, here's the map to getting to this point where you can buy a home. This is what a good lender will do. If you need a referral to somebody who's amazingly awesome, let me know. We'll have a lender give you a call who meets all of these criteria and has done an excellent work for everything we do.
All right, we have a really special guest that we're bringing in for this next portion of our buyer webinar here. Her name is Pianjo Glad. She's been a real estate agent for a while. She just recently joined the Effective Agent team, and we were having a conversation the other day about where buyers are at, what they're looking to do right now, questions that buyers have. And Pianjo had some really great insights on things that buyers are facing right now. So welcome, Pianjo. Thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Let me just ask you kind of a question that we come across a lot. And it'll kind of frame the conversation. A lot of buyers are wondering, should I buy? Should I not buy? Is the timing right? All kinds of other questions. But if somebody comes to you and they're just like, to buy or not to buy, where do you start? What do you talk about?
Yeah, well, and I think this is especially relevant in the last year, and people have been very, very much paying attention to the market changes and kind of just the sentiment. But I think the first thing is to look at why buying is important to you. Are you just trying to find a better space for your family? Is it cheaper to buy a home rather than rent? Like, what even brought you to this conversation?
Yeah, that's really true. In fact, most of the times when somebody gets on the phone with me or meets me in the office and is talking about buying, I really want to know what, there's so many other things you could be doing with your time and energy right now. What makes you think you want to jump in the market to buy a house? I just had a client that they have some older parents that are renting, paying a fortune in rent right now.
Right.
And so they're thinking about selling their house and buying a house that has a mother-in-law apartment, where they can save their in-laws some rent. And one of the questions I like to ask, and I think that you do as well, is like, okay, so we know you want to have a place for your parents. I like to ask, what would that mean to you and to your family? More than just, okay, we know what the need is, but tell me about what that would mean to your family. What do you find as you help people explore that? How does that help buyers?
I think it helps buyers in a couple ways. It helps them, to understand what they're searching for. It's really hard to find what you're searching for if you don't know what you're searching for. And then it also helps you to focus in on why you're doing this, so that in the hard parts of the journey, because buying is still a roller coaster, in the hard parts of the journey, that you can hold on to that and know that at the end of the tunnel, there's this light that you're working towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question that a lot of people come up with right now, because we all we watch the news, we read the blogs and things about real estate, and in some parts of the country, a lot of people really worry, I guess would be the word, about a market correction or a market fluctuation. And so we get that question here in Utah, especially since so many people are moving here from out of state now. But what if there's a market correction? What if prices go down or things like that? And before you answer that, before you address that, let me just say, we'll be talking about this a little bit more in the webinar as well, once you and I are done speaking. But everything looks great for Utah right now. Our unemployment rate is the lowest in the nation. Our economic outlook is usually reported as the best in the nation. Interest rates, I just saw a report that the Fed said they anticipate leaving interest rates where they are until 2023. So we should still have a lot of buyers. So personally, I don't think Utah is looking at a correction. I honestly kind of wish that we would have a little bit of a correction. Like, prices are getting kind of expensive, but I don't see that as a big questionable thing. Yet a lot of buyers do wonder, what if I buy a house and prices go down 10 grand or whatever?
Right.
How would you answer that?
Well, and I think it's something that we face all the time in the real estate market. Prices do go up and down, and I do hope we at least level out, like you were saying. And it's something that I thought about just recently, because I bought a house, and I said, well, what if it did go down? And what would that mean to me? And as I was going through it and thinking about it, really in the end, there were reasons to buy that trumped that market fluctuation. And time, even if the market goes down a little bit this year or next year, I don't plan on selling again this year or next year, so it won't affect me. And keeping in that long-term view, and I'm not selling next year, it doesn't matter to me if it goes down next year, is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like the example that I gave of the great past clients that I have who want their parents to move into the basement to save some rent.
Right.
Honestly, in that particular case, if you were looking at real estate in 2008, rents went up when the market crashed because less people could buy a house. So in that exact example, you probably should still buy. But I think that's a really good point. Like, what is your why? We kind of talked about that already. And how would a market fluctuation affect that? I mean, if you're looking to buy a house for as a long-term investment, or to have a better place for your family, or to have a better place for your pets, or to be closer to work, if there was a market correction, like you said, over time, real estate appreciates. So
Right.
would it really even matter? I think that's a great way to look at it. Okay, so
I
another
also,
question. Oh, go ahead.
I know, I also really like your rent example um, because it just shows market rates for rents usually appreciate too. Your mortgage rate, uh, with a
Stays the
little
same.
exception for property taxes,
Yeah.
stays the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point.
So,
Nationally, rents go up on average 3 to 5% per year. Um, I think in Utah we've been going up more than that as prices go up. But yeah, your mortgage
right.
will stay the same, short of some property taxes will go up a little bit. But yeah, that's a great point. Great point. Okay, so another question that buyers come to me with: am I ready to buy? How do I know if I'm ready to buy? Like, where do you start?
Well, that's a great question. There's and really, I think that's where an effective lender really comes into play, because a lot of those questions, when you get to how much credit do you need, what's your down payment, that sort of thing, is something to go over with a lender and figure out where you are in the process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So if you have the motivation to buy, there's a reason. I think
right.
I think your starting point then at that point, after you've talked to Pianjo, is going to be to talk to a great effective lender, because there
Right.
are some lenders out there that are not great effective lenders.
Right.
And to kind of get that roadmap, and maybe they'll tell you you're ready to go today, or maybe they'll come back and say if
In,
you do these two things, you'll get a lower rate in a couple months. So
and
great,
it
great
makes
starting
it
point.
makes all the difference to have a great lender on your side, because a great lender will help you find the things that you need to do and get it done with you.
Yeah, that's a good point. By the way, if anybody's watching this who needs a great lender, we work with some of the best lenders in Utah and have some really special programs that make your offer look better than any other agent who's presenting offers, because of what we can do. So, okay, so I just saw an article. I think it was KSL News. I'm not sure where it was. I think it was KSL.com, about this young couple that have been looking for a house, and it's like the journey of a first-time buyer in this tough market was kind of the thing. And they talked about multiple offer situations, and offering above the asking price, and
Right.
just things like that. So I know a question that people are wondering is the market too hard right now? Is it actually, can I actually buy a house? How do you answer that? It's not an easy market right now.
No, and I probably would say that. I don't think I want to set up expectations to think you're just going to go out tomorrow, find the perfect house, put in an offer, and be moving in. It is a difficult market, but it is not an impossible market. There are still homes out there, and people still are moving into homes. So I would really encourage you working with a great agent, an effective agent, who can help make your offer look better, will help you get into the house faster.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy that goes into the market right now.
There is.
Yes, homes are getting 10, 15, 20 offers, although it's slowing down a little bit. A month and a half ago, every listing that we had was getting 30 to 40 offers. Now we're in a drought. We're only getting like 10 to 20 offers in the first week.
I almost think it's a good thing, because you have a better chance of going in under contract today than you did a month and a half ago, which means that people are a little scared off, which might give you the advantage.
Yeah. And if you come in with an offer that stands out, they're looking at these offers and they're like, okay, this one's offering this much and this one's this much, and relatively pricing is going to be the same. As an agent, we know where people are offering on properties. We can get fairly close, with the exception of the occasional crazy Californian that just sold a $2 million property and they're coming in with cash. But what can you do?
Right.
But we kind of know where they're at. So it's about standing out so that they actually will give your offer a name, like, oh, this is the offer that could close in 10 days. we like that offer and go from there. Yeah. So, okay. So your answer to, is the market too hard right now, is it is a harder market than it has been in the past,
Yes.
but you wouldn't say it's too hard and I should wait.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah. Especially with properties going up 20% a year.
Right.
It may be difficult to get an offer accepted right now, but is that as hard as paying $80,000 more for a property next year? That seems hard to me. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Pianjo. It's been an excellent conversation. The last question that I kind of wanted to go over as we were having this conversation is, how do I get started? You know, if there's reasons that you want to buy a house, that you should buy a house, but you've got these questions, you don't know if you're ready, you're wondering about what the market's going to do, you're wondering about what you can afford, I would say the best thing to do is really just to start that conversation. Give us a call, send us an email, talk to Pianjo, talk to myself, talk to John, talk to Mark, anybody on our team, and just start that conversation. We love talking to people. I just helped somebody close on a home that we started talking to 4 years ago. And it's been a great relationship. They've had questions off and on, and when the time is right, they found a great house, and it was a fun experience helping them. So, Pianjo, thank you very much for joining us. And it was a pleasure talking with you. And let's continue on to the next segment of the buyer webinar. Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up, let's talk about a couple of tips, a couple of things that you can do. We talked about when you should get pre-qualified, pre-approved, get that process started. Know what you want, you know, start to define what you want in a property so that you can kind of ignore all of the noise that does come up and really focus in on the properties that are going to match your search. And sometimes we need to make adjustments and things, you know, if we're too narrow in our search, maybe nothing will come up. But so kind of just have an understanding of what areas you really want to be in, what areas around those would be okay to be in if you find a really awesome place. You know, are you okay with some work once you go into the property, painting and things, or do you want it just beautiful and nice when you go in? You know, put some thought into that and really know what you want. Pre-approved, know what you want, be fast to get to the property. We're not in a situation anymore where we have to offer like within the first 10 minutes of a property coming on the market, because sellers are smart enough now to know that they're going to wait until, you know, at least 3 or 4 days after they've listed the house. So we don't want to drag our feet. I mean, if we see a property that we like, let's get in and look at it and get the offer in. But we don't, it's not this frantic, you know, we've got to get in, we've got to see it, we've got to get an offer in anymore. But we, you know, we do want to be fast, and then just enjoy the process. There's going to be turbulence. You know, it's like an airplane ride. I don't think I've ever ridden an airplane where there hasn't been some turbulence up and down, but the pilot's job is to get us from point A to where we want to be in a safe and a fast manner. And that's kind of like what real estate is. I'm your pilot in the transaction. An effective agent is your pilot in the transaction. There's going to be some bumps. There's going to be, you know, everybody's going to hate the paperwork process in lending. It's just not something that we all sit around going, I hope this weekend I can dig through bank statements. But don't let the turbulence take the fun out of buying a property. Be excited about it. Have fun. We're going to find a great place, and we're going to be here with you until we get you that great place, and then even after that. So enjoy the process. Prepare yourself, and we will do everything that we can up front to make sure that it's smooth, enjoyable, and that you're extremely competitive in the market. So thanks for tuning in. It's been great having this seminar. Again, watch out for video first week in July for the 2021 second quarter state of the market report, and then we'll keep you posted on as to other events and things that are coming up that we think you'll enjoy. This is Michael Olson. I'm tuning out. I hope to get to help you as you're looking to buy a house.